Today, we continue our journey through the lives of Jesus' disciples, uncovering the stories of Philip and Nathanael. Grace, in
Yeah?
this episode, we're going to talk about Philip and Nathanael. And
But you didn't tell me to say hi.
okay, hi, and introduce yourself. Just say hi to the listeners.
Hi, I'm Grace, Joshua's sister,
Oh,
the fun one.
okay, yeah. So Grace is my sister, and I think this is the first time that you're introducing yourself as my sister.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Actually, you have two sisters, and I said the fun one. So Faith shouldn't listen to this episode because she'll be like, "Oh, so am I a
So
joke?"
Faith is fun as well. All right. So
Yeah, she is. She's so much fun.
today we're going to talk about Philip and Nathaniel. And just a little spoiler, you're going to be hearing names like Bartholomew. How do you pronounce it? Bartholomew? Bartholomew? Bartholomew?
Barthol- Bartholomew.
Okay. You know what?
Bartholomew.
Just for the sake of
You know
it, I'm
what?
going to stick to Nathaniel. And you can stick to the other name if you're happy with that.
Bartholomew.
So
Yeah.
basically, these are two of Jesus, these apostles that played a key role in spreading the gospel, each in their own unique way, of course. All right. So let's start with Philip. Who was Philip? Philip, I would just say he was a gentleman that Jesus met, and Jesus told him to follow him. And Philip straight away left what he was doing and followed Jesus.
Just like the other disciples.
Exactly. He didn't protest, he didn't ask any question, he didn't need any special sign. Each disciple was unique in a way that some people just left things and followed him. Why some people he had to like show them how to fish well. Like remember when we spoke about Peter and Co. How he got into their boat, told them to
Yeah.
cast their nets into the other
Yeah.
side, and then they caught a lot of fish. He had to do things to get them interested. But Philip, he just met him and said, "Follow me." Philip is an interesting character because, in my personal opinion, it's easy to go from
Uh-huh.
Philip to Thomas. And what I mean by this is when we talk about Thomas, we talk a lot more about his characteristics and his character. But in Philip,
Yeah. The fact that he had a lot of doubt.
exactly. Philip is known for trying to seek the truth, trying to ask questions to know more. Why Thomas
Uh-huh.
does something similar, but from the place of he doesn't believe. Philip is more like, okay, help me believe more. Why Thomas is like, nah.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that Thomas was like a science guy? If it's not proven, then he wouldn't believe it. Just the way he had to wait to see Jesus' hand to be sure
That's an
that, yeah.
interesting way of putting it. And I would say interesting in the sense that I think that, like I said, Thomas and Philip were both. Philip was more of the science guy because he was more inquisitive. Thomas was more. Thomas was more like, if I don't see it, then it doesn't exist. But Philip is more like, it could exist, but just prove it to me.
I
He was
see.
first mentioned in the book of John, chapter 1. So when Jesus called him, Philip initially recognized that, okay, this Jesus is fulfilling the prophecy. And then the next thing he did was to go and bring his friend Nathanael. So he encouraged his friend to come and see this Jesus. When we talk about some of his attributes later, we'll notice that this is one of the things about Philip. He's easily motivated to go and talk about this Jesus guy to other people. Later, we notice that Philip had some questions when he told Jesus, like, show me the Father and things like that. But even with all this, he still was able to at least introduce other people to Jesus. And when he introduced Nathanael, he just told him, come and see. He didn't have to spend time arguing or debating or whatnot. When Nathanael met Jesus, all of the rest was sorted out. Another aspect of
I
Philip,
think
yep,
I think Philip and Andrew have that thing in common to
yes,
bring people to Jesus.
yes,
But Andrew didn't have questions or didn't have something he was not sure about. But Philip was more of the he wants to know more. He was inquisitive.
yeah. Another reason why I think that Philip was more of the science guy was Philip was pragmatic. For instance, when Jesus wanted to feed the 5,000 and Jesus asked, like, how do we get the resources? Philip gave a
Mm-hmm.
reasonable answer. He said that even if they were to work for months, they will not still have enough money to feed everyone. And technically speaking, that was true. But Jesus was trying to teach a lesson there that they should walk by faith and not by sight. Another aspect of Philip that showed this his nature was when they were at the Last Supper. Basically, Philip told Jesus, show us the Father. And Philip had been with Jesus for so long that he still had this question. And Jesus was, well, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. Now, we'll just talk a bit more of Philip before we delve into the life of Nathanael. After Jesus was resurrected, and they had to continue the mission of spreading the good news. Philip preached in modern day Turkey and also parts of Asia Minor. Because remember, we spoke, I think that was in the first episode when we said how the disciples had to spread out so the word could get to the whole
Yeah.
world, or to the world as they knew it at the moment. Another really important meeting was when Philip encountered the Ethiopian eunuch. So this was someone who had zeal without knowledge. And this is really important because the eunuch was reading the Bible, but he didn't understand what he was reading, but he still kept reading it. Why I like that story was it showed the honesty of the Ethiopian eunuch, because when Philip met him, he didn't have pride to say, "Oh, I understand what I'm reading" or whatnot. Because there are a lot of people these days that read something, don't understand it, but for some reason just go and
But they
open a
won't say
church
anything.
and start preaching
Yeah, and start preaching
heresy.
based on their limited
And
knowledge.
we are all always going to know in some parts. I don't think it's possible for anyone to know everything. But there are some foundational knowledge that's important. When the eunuch met Philip, Philip then explains to him these things and he got baptized. So it was
Okay.
just, Philip was touched to go speak to that person, and by that interaction, his life changed. And there are some stories of how the Ethiopian eunuch,
I have to add that part where he
yeah, of
disappeared.
course. And there are some stories that how that was one of the ways the gospel got to Africa and things like that. But we'll just focus on the story of Philip for today. So basically, it's said that Philip and Nathanael, after a while, were, like most of the apostles, were killed. Philip and Nathanael were crucified upside down, and Philip was said to have been preaching from the cross. And as a result, they wanted to release him and Nathanael, but Philip said they should not release him. Now, one thing we have to note about Philip and Nathanael's death is there are different records. So this record said Philip was preaching from the cross and told them not to release him, and that's how he died. He was crucified upside down. Because for some reason, most of the apostles who were crucified didn't want to die in the same way as Jesus. So we spoke
Jesus,
about
yeah.
Andrew on the X
Like
cross,
Peter.
Peter upside down. Yeah, Philip was upside down as well. Although there are some records that say that Philip was beheaded, but we're not going to discuss all of that because that's not, I believe, the most important thing. But one thing that's really important is even at the point of death, his faith didn't waver. So
Because they are sure of where they're
yeah.
going.
So now
Yeah.
the next person we're going to talk about is Nathaniel. Yeah,
Bartholomew.
Bartholomew. Because Philip and Bartholomew or Nathaniel were mostly seen together. Philip brought Nathaniel to Jesus, and when they were being sent on missions and things, as per most records, they were doing this together. So now,
Yeah.
Bartholomew, Philip
Nathaniel.
when
Don't mind
no,
me.
no, enjoy. So when Philip and Nathaniel, or when Philip introduced Nathaniel to Jesus, right? Initially, Nathaniel was skeptical, and there was this line he said, "Can anything good come from
Can
Nazareth?"
anything good
I
come?
like that line.
Wait, do you think he said it? There's a bit of sarcasm in the
Yeah.
line.
Like, I mean, I don't think that he was a full-blown comedian, but he was saying what he said. And that line is going to become important in a second. Why? Is because when Jesus met him, of course,
Mm-hmm.
he recognized Jesus as, okay, this is the person prophesied of that he's going to come and everything. But Jesus praised him and saying, a true Israelite in which there is no deceit. He was a straightforward guy. He said it as it came to his mind. He was not
I
going
said
to.
what I said.
Yeah. And he said, can anything good come out from Nazareth? Because that's what he thought. Although they were all like Israelite, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we all know about the Northern Kingdom and the split all back in the day of Rehoboam and Jeroboam and all that. They were not from
Mm-hmm.
Samaria, they were from the tribe that remained. But even amongst those people, they still had some sort of, I won't call it a class system, but they felt like, well, from this region, prophets and important people come from Nazareth. Can anything good come out from there, literally? But when
Yeah.
Jesus met him, Jesus praised him and then told him what he was doing. That, okay, before we met, you were here doing this and this. And from that,
Yeah.
Nathanael was sold. He was like, okay, fair enough.
And the thing is, Jesus actually knew what he said. No one had to tell Jesus that, oh, this is what
Yeah.
Nathaniel said.
Exactly. So now we talk about Nathanael's ministry. During Jesus' walk, most of his disciples sent in pairs, like we see in most of the records, doing miracles, casting out demons, healing people, preaching the good news, and all of that. But after Jesus was resurrected, Nathanael went to preach in India, Armenia. There are records that he preached as far as Arabia, Ethiopia, also Azerbaijan, back because there was one of the churches there, there's the Saint Nathanael, Saint Bartholomew Church in Baku. One recurring theme in all Jesus followers is they were killed. So again, like I mentioned earlier, there was a bit of conflicting reports about how Nathanael died. Some
Yeah.
said he was martyred in Armenia, flayed alive, and beheaded. Others said he was crucified. Either way,
Do you think it's because of what he
well, of
said?
course, because you know that there was this recurrent pattern of when you preach to like a poor person or like a nobody in quotes, and by nobody I mean there
Yeah.
are people who don't have any sort of power or influence. Fine, you don't really get so much drawback or whatever, but the moment you are getting a lot of people following you, like in Jesus' case, the moment
Yeah.
that the leaders notice that this person is getting the heart of the masses, then it becomes a problem, and then
There's like a power
people
shift.
exactly
Then they
people don't
start
want to
feeling,
lose the power.
yeah,
So either
yeah.
in the case of like Nero, for instance, Emperor Nero, when he felt like by killing these Christians, he's getting a good approval from the masses, he was doing that. Or in cases where they casted out demons from people and the masters of these slaves or code that had demons felt like, well, by losing this, they've lost. Yeah, it happens now.
Yeah.
In the case of Paul, when there was a soothsayer and they casted out the demon from her, and her masters
Oh,
were sad
yeah. She was
that they've
saying
lost the business and that they were persecuted for so
the
many
lady with the
reasons.
divination or
Exactly, they were
something.
persecuted for so many reasons. So
No, I was actually just joking when I said, is it because of what he said that can anything good come out of Nazareth or something? I'm kidding.
mhm, yeah.
I'm kidding. I mean, they're enjoying themselves in heaven, so it's not like. So, Joshua, thank you so much for talking about Philip and Bartholomew. Nathaniel. I am going to handle my favorite section, which is the Q&A section.
hmm
So the first I think I'm just enjoying the word section. First question is, why was Philip known as an inquirer
All
of
right, yeah,
truth?
that's a really good question because Philip was known for asking these deep questions, showing his curiosity and his desire to understand Jesus more. And just a little bit I'll add after this is when he started following Jesus, he didn't know everything, but his faith was enough to get him going. And then from there, the knowledge and more came. So I would say people come into this from different approaches. Some people they first believe and they know. Some people they know and then they believe. Either way, as long as like Paul will say, as long as it's all done for the glory of God, it's all good.
Yeah, true. Okay. The second question is, how did Philip introduce Nathaniel to
Philip
Jesus?
introduced Nathanael in a simple way that you invite someone for like an event or something. He didn't have to go debate or whatever. He just told him, "Yo, Nathanael, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law. That's this Jesus of Nazareth. Simple, we have found him." So it just up to Nathanael to choose whether, okay, I want to come, I don't want to come. He didn't, no
How do
stress.
you know he said
Hmm?
you? How did you know? Or rather, how do you know he
Very
said
good
you?
question. I don't know whether he said you. That's just added for dramatic effect.
I know. Okay, the third question is, what can we learn from Nathaniel's initial doubt about
So
Jesus?
his initial
Hence the question.
skepticism, saying,
Can
"Can
anything
anything
good?
come
Yeah.
from Nazareth?"
Yeah.
Basically, it does show that how people's faith start. And Jesus
Yeah.
was open to it because, Jesus doesn't take it personal that this guy is dissing my family.
He doesn't know who I
He
am.
doesn't exactly. He's like, nah, I can't talk to this guy anymore. He thinks I'm a joke. But Jesus welcomed him, and by Jesus getting past that and accepting him, this was enough to strengthen Nathaniel's faith. So I'll say
Yeah.
what we can learn from this is that initially we might not have good understanding or good knowledge, or we may even have doubts. But the point
Yeah.
is to be open enough to meet Jesus, because he could have said, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And when Jesus came, he wouldn't even have had any conversation with him and just walked away. And that way, he would
True.
have left as he was initially. But by just giving Jesus a few minutes or seconds to talk, or to by being open up to him, by opening up to him, he was able to get that knowledge and his life change.
The fourth question is, what does this story teach us about
Well, there
evangelism?
are a lot of things that we could learn. Both Philip and Nathaniel were important. Both sought to know more about Jesus. Both sought to know the truth. And importantly, they both shared it with others. The approach of asking questions, trying to get more knowledge, and also introducing people to Jesus just demonstrates that what evangelism is an invitation rather than a coercion. I think in the last episode, or if I remember in the last episode, we spoke about how it is easier to, or most cases, easier to introduce people to Jesus when they feel like they have a need, unlike people who feel like their life is all better and like their life is all good and they don't need anything else. But in this case, it's just simple invitation. This is who Jesus is. This is why we are here to preach. No need to force anybody. No need to, say coerce anyone into it.
Okay. Thank you so much for these lovely
All
answers.
right.
I talk about the learning points.
Okay. So the learning points from this, I can say some of the things that I've learned, and you're happy to say some things you've learned as well. Okay. The first thing that I would say that I learned from this is that one, the faith journey can begin with a question. Philip and Nathanael had questions because they were both honest with themselves and they wanted to know what they were getting involved in. Although when Jesus called Philip, Philip just followed him and Nathanael had questions. But you see, throughout Philip's journey, he kept on asking the questions. So Nathanael asked the question initially and then afterwards was fine, or according to the records. But Philip believed because he knew what he saw, he knew what he knew what he encountered, and then later he asked these questions to just consolidate his knowledge and to grow more in what he knew. Second thing is, I think I've said this a couple of times when I said it's like an invitation, not a coercion. So Philip to Nathanael when he met him was come and see this Jesus. That's it. And then by Nathanael meeting Jesus is when he had the, of course, the life changing knowledge and everything. So is our point is to point people to Jesus. You get, because we can't save anybody. Like as well, we didn't die for anybody, and also I can't really die for anybody. I'm too tired.
you're
You
so
have to like walk
you're
to
too
the cross
tired to
and all of
die
that.
for someone. You're
Honestly,
so
man.
funny.
Like no, like as per like go to the cross, get flogged and all of that. Nah, sounds like it's too much stress.
Well,
So
maybe
yeah, it just can't be bought.
I think it was
But
Jesus had a goal to make people to come through him to the Father.
yeah,
Because before Jesus, it used to be like the priest and the holies of holies and all those things. So he wanted to bridge that gap. So to him, he wasn't just dying for us because he felt like,
yeah.
and he had a major reason for
No,
that. So
no.
even if he felt tired, that goal ahead of
Yeah.
him will remind him that.
I mean, Jesus did feel tired. I mean, in the prayer in Gethsemane when he was asking if they could take the cup away from him. Yeah, but the point is like it was Jesus' go to. That was his purpose. And we as Christians should understand that our job now is to tell people about that, is to point people to him. Even when the apostles, the disciples were persecuted, of course, only Jesus could die for the sins of the world. No other person could do it. Because Bible just literally said all have sinned and we are falling short. So even if you die, your sacrifice will not be accepted because you had the sin nature until you took Jesus' nature. So basically, what I mean is that we should all invite people, knowing that we are just like signboard pointing people to the events, pointing people to Jesus, who's the main event. Yeah.
I can say that God uses different personalities. For instance, Philip was very inquisitive and Nathanael was deeply honest. Some people will be like, this person is too inquisitive, always asking questions. But that is the way we can learn. If you don't ask questions, how are you going to learn? How are you going to know new things? And then sometimes being honest is just good. Like instead of hiding your feelings or whatever, Nathaniel was like, "Ah, can anything good come from Nazareth?" Like that's the way he felt, and he said it. And Jesus did not feel like this person is looking down on Nazareth. I can't make this person my disciple. Maybe he will have issues with me. He still was okay with him being a disciple. So God can use anybody, no matter how they are, if they are outspoken, if they are soft, if they are acting like babies or whatever, God can use you. And then faith leads to actions. Both men took their faith beyond their hometowns and traveled to different regions to share the gospel, setting an example of true disciple. So it's not easy to leave where you've been for so long and so you're going to a new place to, preach the gospel. How are they going to receive it? How are they going to treat you? So some people find it difficult to travel to new places because they are afraid of how they'll be received, how they'll be treated, especially if they're going to introduce a new religion to them and all that. Some people can really be hostile. So they didn't care about all that. They just went by faith. And that is a very good example of true leadership and true discipleship.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Grace. And at this point, we'll come to the conclusion and of this episode. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today on the episode on stories of Joshua and Grace. Yeah. We hope that the lives of Philip and Nathaniel has inspired you to seek and share the truth in your own way. Remember, you don't have to be the loudest voice to make the biggest impact. Sometimes a simple invitation can change life. All right, so if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until the next time, may you continue to grow in grace and may your faith in Christ get stronger. Have a good
Amen.
week, and God
See
bless
you
you.
soon. Bye.
Bye.